What's your step here? So we have we've got a couple little dumb pickup shots we have to get this week. Just little stuff we take care of. So I have to get the props and costumes back out of storage, out of all this big mess. Here we got the props and stuff all tucked away. This is like one of 5 boxes, I think, of stuff in here. Production design, you know, the production design being, you know, the design of, you know, your costumes, your props, everything. Production design itself is pretty a vague term, but that production design includes your props, kind of your costumes, your set design, even your lighting contributes to that. The design process, to me, is very important because it helps. It's another tool that I as a filmmaker have to support my story and kind of set the tone, the world, and bring a really unique vision to the story I'm trying to tell. So we spend a long time in the design process. I mean, the design process for me honestly starts even before the script starts. You know, it starts as soon as the idea is birthed. That design process is happening simultaneously with the script, so that they're kind of an interwoven process, so that I know that my design is going to complement the story as best as it possibly can. Out of that design process, other things will also benefit. Your marketing, your website, your posters, everything is kind of birthed out of that design process as well. So for us, you know, we make it's kind of standard for us that anything that comes out of the Mercury Men world, be it our website, be it a poster, be it our digital prop series, everything that comes from that world should look like it came from the Mercury Men world and came from that universe. I spent a long time researching anytime I'm doing design. So for Mercury Men, you know, knowing we're in that sci-fi world, you know, I'm spending a long time looking at old photos and going through, you know, I was going through the Library of Congress photo archives online and just pulling all these old photos and old posters and old audio and anything that I thought was going to be a good tool for telling my story. You know, anything that I thought was a great visual cue to support the story. The design of Mercury Men comes from 3 separate areas. One clearly is the old 30s, 40s sci-fi pulp, you know, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers. I mean, you look at something like Jack's leather jacket, aviator cap and goggles, you know, it's that old classic pulp style. We also pull from the 1950s sci-fi style. You know, that's really a lot from in our lighting style. You know, the sharp angles, the deep shadows, that film noir style. That really comes from 1950s sci-fi style. Lastly, and where we drew the most inspiration from design for our props and costumes, is late 50s, early 60s American space program. You know, the early days of NASA, the Mercury 7 astronauts, the Gemini program, even the early Apollo program. So a lot of our design comes from that technology, that style. You know, the story's roots are in the early days of aviation and the early days of that space program. You take a look at Edward, for example. The character of Edward Boardman, while he's got some classic 50s sci-fi style about him, that very well could fit in with the NASA flight controllers that you see. You know, the guys sitting at the computers with, you know, failure is not an option, doot headsets and all. Those guys, you know, Edward Boardman's style comes from that. The Mercury engineers, they're another great example of combining kind of these styles. You know, while their mask and their look is a little bit 1950s sci-fi, their costume is designed after the Mercury 7 astronauts. It's that, you know, metallic, tight-fitting outfit that is, you know, looks like a walking baked potato kind of deal. And our costumer, Ricky Lyle, did a fantastic job of really capturing that style. That's another example of how research benefits you, because here I'd had all these photos of the style that I was looking for, that Mercury 7 astronaut style. And it's easy for me to pass those along to a costumer, for him to kind of take that visual cue and interpret it and come up with the design and a costume that really complements that vision. The phrase that I used a lot while working on design was that we were working in an analog world. This is not the digital world of today. Our story takes place in an older time when their technology was a little bit more archaic, you know? And so they weren't using fancy equipment. They were using things like these old walkie-talkies. I mean, look at this thing. This thing is a brick. And the antenna is 6 feet tall. I mean, it's almost as tall as I am. You know, by comparison, I'm 6'7". This thing is up to my chin. Even the Lumiere is based off of a revolver. It's an older design. It's not a flashier laser pistol like say the Star Trek phasers or whatnot. It's an older looking, clunkier weapon, heavier weapon. A lot of times in the indie film world, they neglect design. Because a lot of people think that you need lots of money to have good production design. That's not necessarily the case. You don't need the money to build these elaborate sets or to have these these really expensive costumes made or get custom props made. Half the stuff we got is cheap off eBay or flea markets. I spent weekends at flea markets and spent hours on eBay. So there's lots of stuff that you can pick up to complement your vision very cheaply. There's also just hundreds of resources online for prop making and costume building. It just seems in the past couple years there's been this surge of websites devoted to building props and costumes, everything from Star Wars lightsabers to outfits from video games and all that. And even if you just take what you learn from those and don't apply it to a specific existing franchise film, but apply that to your own project and how you can take what you learn from there. You as a filmmaker, there's lots of opportunity to use design to complement your story.